It is likely largely underreported in Canada, but studies do show human trafficking is growing year over year in this country. And it's not just people smuggled internationally. It's increasingly happening to unsuspecting Canadian girls right here at home. To tell us more about it, author Boge Boge joins me. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for having me here.
Great to have you back. Now, you tell me about when you first realized that this is something that could be happening right down the street from where you live.
Yeah, my friend Joy Smith first introduced me to the whole topic of human trafficking. And like many of the people, I thought human trafficking was something happening in Southeast Asia or in Africa, and it is. But she told me that over 90% of all the girls who are being trafficked in Canada are born and raised right here in Canada. And that's when the eyes opened up to how big
So you
the
believed
problem
her,
is.
you didn't say, oh, come on, Joy.
And she allowed me to go and interview survivors of human trafficking who talked to me about their devastation across this country as how they were lured into human trafficking and some of the danger signs of what it means to be trafficked in this country.
So you wrote this book, The True Story of Canadian Human Trafficking, and I loved it, by the way.
Thank
you wrote
you.
it as a story, and it was so gripping and so hard to put down. Now, as you mentioned, to do this, you actually sat down with survivors of human trafficking, girls who agreed to open up their lives, share their story, which must have been difficult, and with a man, too, let's be honest. What was that experience like?
It was amazing because what they would do is they would share with me how they got involved in human trafficking and how the traffickers managed to deceive them into getting trafficked. And so these girls came from all different walks of life. These girls are wonderful, excellent, kind people who were deceived. And they came from great family backgrounds, and someone had entered their life either through social media or by meeting them at a public venue, it could be at a community club or a church function or something, and they begin to slowly lure these girls in.
I think that's a great point that you just made, that it can be any, ethnicity, any background, any level of wealth or education.
Yeah.
It's happening now. So how does a human trafficker get these girls? What do they do?
The number one thing that a trafficker does, the Bible talks about that, the devil preys upon the precious life. So what the traffickers are doing is they're trying to find something in that young girl's life that they think they can capitalize on. The average age of entry for human trafficking is 12 to 14 years old. And so if a girl is in her teens, she may be looking to fit in with somebody, she may be looking for some more popularity, she may be looking for better clothing, new cell phone, whatever it is, and this trafficker will befriend them either online or in person and slowly try to figure out what is this girl looking for, and then they promise her. The trafficking background is over-promising and completely under-delivering.
And there's something about dads here, too, that you found talking to them.
Massive.
Tell me about the dad connection.
Every single girl, after I sat down, and some would be like for hours at a restaurant, where they would share their life stories with me, at the end, I would ask them all the same question. If there was one thing that could have prevented you from getting involved in human trafficking, what would it have been? And all these girls, without knowing what the other girl had said, they all gave the exact same answer. They all said, if only my dad would have spent more time with me. And so there's a definite connection between fathers, grandfathers, pastors, uncles, spending time with these precious young women to help them to understand and develop what a good man looks like, as opposed to someone else coming into their life and taking them away.
Yeah, and speaking into their worth and value, because at 12 to 14, man, you are looking for the fact, am I pretty, am I attractive, do I have value in this life? And if the wrong man comes and starts speaking into her life, then that's the voice she's gonna listen to.
Right, it's deception.
So now, you didn't just interview survivors. I find this fascinating. You interviewed a former human trafficker who has changed his ways. But still, that must have been an interesting interview.
It was fantastic because he is now completely turned around, and Don Bouchard's a fantastic guy, loves the Lord, but it gives a real insight into why traffickers do what they do. These guys make huge amounts of money, and the biggest problem that they have is they see women as a commodity. Now, it's largely women who are being trafficked, but young boys are being trafficked now as well. And so traffickers, they don't have the witness of the Holy Spirit to tell them what's wrong, and so they see people just as another commodity, the way you and I might buy and sell a Coke for somebody. They look and they buy and sell people.
Because when you sell drugs, you can only sell them once and it's done. But a human, you can sell over and over and over. That's why it's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Okay, so traffickers are bad. Women are, being ensnared by them. But it's really the Johns or the clients who are driving the industry.
Absolutely.
Who is a typical man who would buy the services of these young girls?
Yeah, and this is the part that really is strange to think about. So when I first thought about Johns when it comes to human traffickers, the men who pay for sex, I thought these are guys who are really down their luck. Maybe they're living, you know, haven't got a job, no place to live. But the typical John, he can come from any background, any financial background, married or single, but on average, these guys are between 30 and 60 years old, and they have a good job. They look, act, and sound just like me. They're the guy next door. And so our culture has to wake up to understand that this is rampant in our culture, and to not think that, well, this is just a few guys in the corner doing this. This is across the board of people who we think should be there to help women. We should be there to be champions in our culture, but they aren't.
And, you know, that's one thing in your book that really hit me. You know, as you mentioned, Joyce Smith, former MP, changed our human trafficking laws in Canada through her absolute commitment to it. But part of her story is as she's trying to change the law, she has MPs coming to her saying, please don't do this. I'm being threatened by the madame where I go to visit these girls who's going to out me, and my life is going to be ruined if I vote for this legislation.
Right. Human trafficking, in that sense, is similar to the drug trade. It's very pervasive, all different levels of culture, all different areas. And so one of the challenges she faced was that, yeah, there were members of parliament who were seeing girls who didn't want their story to get out. And so one of the challenges we face in human trafficking is that we have to confront evil wherever we see it, and to be willing to understand that this evil of John's is in many different areas of our culture, the justice system, in different political areas, but also in everyday life. And so as believers, we have to shine a light on this so that we can see what's really happening, that people are challenged to come out of this lifestyle.
Yeah, and I think talking about it matters. You know, in your book, the story that you wrote, the John in it, they're deceived too, because these women are acting like they like it, they want it, or, you know, maybe they're helping them go through school. They believe these lies because the women are terrified for their lives. These traffickers are threatening their life, and people need to understand the reality of that situation. So if people are watching right now and they're kind of getting this, okay, so yes, it's evil. Yes, we can agree. Yes, we have to do something. What can I, just the average Canadian who maybe has never met a woman or doesn't knowingly know that we know someone who's been trafficked, because people probably don't talk about it. What can we do?
Yeah, so the first thing is to become aware and recognize the signs of human trafficking. If somebody who used to be really outgoing is now very pulled in, different, more suggestive kinds of clothing is a big giveaway. 2 cell phones is a dead giveaway. So the first is to become educated to understand, how does human trafficking work? It happens in many, many different ways. The second thing is to educate children. You know, when we're young, moms and dads would say, don't cross the street without looking both ways. And so we're trying to protect our kids. But nowadays, the evils out there are much, much more pervasive, much more difficult, much more severe. And so we need to train young kids and to say, this is how someone is going to approach you online or at the mall or at your community club. So we need to become very aware of that. And the third and the most important thing is that this is modern day slavery. This is what's happening in our country, here in our times, in our place. And so we have to be on the front lines praying to end this kind of slavery. And the good thing is that you have now police all across Canada who are setting up sting operations. And they're trying to trap these Johns into thinking they're going to find someone when really they're getting caught. But the ultimate aim, like you mentioned before, is that people are being lied to. The girl's being lied to by believing that she's going to have a better life with this guy. And then the trafficker's being lied to that this woman's allowed to do this for me because I make money at it. And the John is being lied to because he thinks, well, I'm just helping her with college degrees. So all this deception is based off of lies. And we have to bring that to the truth and have people's eyes open to see what's really happening.
Well, I'm so glad that you are doing that through this book, The True Story of Canadian Human Trafficking. If people want to get a copy, where can they get it?
They can go onto Amazon, they can go into the favorite bookstore, so it's available everywhere, Kindle as well.
I couldn't put this book down. I couldn't recommend it more highly. Thank you so much, Paul Boge, for joining us. And if you want to get a copy of the book, Amazon.com. We'll be right back.